Good morning guys, it's Sophie. Apologies for the little gap. We thought I was better but I wasn't better, and we're hoping I am again now. But I wanted to show you the books that I got for Christmas. I got lots of books for Christmas this year, partly because, as some of you guys will know, part of the thing I've done in 2021 is declutter my house and gotten rid of a lot of stuff I don't need. And I think I certainly find at Christmas I ask for stuff that I know I don't really need but maybe I like, and because it's a present it doesn't feel like you have to think about it as much as if you buy it yourself. So that's bad. But books I love receiving at Christmas. I normally get a few for Christmas anyway, but more of my list was books this year. Do you guys do lists for Christmas, or is it all a surprise? Tom used to all do surprises, his whole family do surprises, but I think he quite likes the list for the simplicity of it, but also for getting things that you actually kind of want out of the end of it, and that being like a sure thing. It's something my family's always done, so it's completely normal for me, but I do quite like getting some surprises as well. The first one I have is Ella Savage's Blueberries. This has been everywhere on what I call Cool People Booktube. And it's an essay collection. I don't know that much about it other than lots of people who I like their views have liked this essay collection, and there's quite a few essays in here. I've read quite a lot of medical non-fiction recently, and essays is another genre I love, and I hadn't picked up any, so I did some research into some essays I might have had interest in, and this was one of them. Next I have Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. This one sounds nuts. There is, I think it escapes from a zoo or something. Escapes from a research facility, and it's a strange frogman that I think she falls in love with. I don't know. Obviously Mrs. Caliban, so the Shakespeare reference there, but it's very short, very sweet. I've seen it on book Twitter, and I think Jen read it recently and liked it, so I'm excited for this one. I think this was, sometimes the other thing I do for Christmas is I'll send someone a link to like a page I like an Instagram reviewer who I like a lot of their books, or podcasts or whatever, and I'll also send them my Storygraph and I'll say, see if there's something on there that they like that I haven't read that you think I'd like, because that's a bit more fun sometimes, and this was one of them. Then Ill Feelings is a memoir by Alice Hattrick. This looks at a woman whose mother becomes unwell, is diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and later the daughter becomes unwell with the same condition. I had avoided Fitzcarraldo editions a little bit, partly because I actually don't enjoy the covers that much. I like variety of my covers, but I read Eula Bliss and really enjoyed Eula Biss and really enjoyed her writing and thought I should try more. So Ill Feelings is one of the ones I asked for. It sounds up my street. And then, just because I'm speaking of her, this is Notes from No Man's Land. This one looks at race and racial identity. I don't know, she's one of those writers that I definitely don't know that I agree with what she writes, but I love the way she writes, so it's very much an exercise in kind of the art of writing, reading her. But we will see what I think of this one. It's just a very clear lyrical style that I very much gel with, so that's essays again. And then, just while we're on the theme, I also got Exteriors by Annie Ernaux, and partly because I saw a lot of her books were on the Fitzcarraldo editions, like they have a lot of her, she seems quite prolific, and I've not read anything, and this one was one of the short ones. It says it's random journal entries that are recorded over 7 years, so I've not read her before. It's tiny, but I thought it would be a nice taster piece to see if I like her style as much as I've liked Eula Biss's style. So I think that's probably under 100 pages. Yeah, 74 pages for this one. And then back to fiction, I have The Manningtree Witches. I just missed this one in 2021, and it was one I didn't want to let slide by and kind of forget about, though I know lots of people have very much enjoyed it, so I thought it was a good pick for a Christmas book. They helped me like gather my year, like what didn't I read that I wanted to read that I've heard everyone else reading, before 2022 kind of gallops in at an enormous pace with everything there is to read in a whole new reading year. Another one that seems like that kind of cool part of BookTube is Paul. I had seen this one recommended to me a lot actually, like when I went on Amazon it was like books you might like, and this was there. I had it recommended to me by a friend, so I've had it kind of pushed into my hands a few ways, as well as obviously all the BookTube people talking about it. It's about a girl who is quite vulnerable and enters a relationship with a unpredictable older man, I believe. So we'll see what I think. I really love the cover. I think the cover's just perfect, gorgeous. I think it looks like so together and perfect. So yeah, that's Paul. Then I have Night Shift by Kara Lana. And this follows a young woman who feels quite trapped by her relationship, her role, her place in life. She feels that everything is quite boring and quite normal, so she swaps her hours to do the night shift to see how that changes her life. I think that's fascinating. I think night working is, I've never worked at night, I've worked unsociable hours, but I've never worked a specific night shift. But I think it's so interesting, and it turns everything topsy-turvy in terms of your access to the world, the way that you interact with other people, sleep, the relationships with your family, like how you shop, how you socialise, how you spend your free time. So I'm really interested to read this one. And then this one, which again has popped up on a few things for me, this is The Undying by Anne Boyer. This is a memoir about her experience with cancer, but I particularly like this quote on the back. It says, "The Undying is partly a memoir of Anne Boyer's illness, diagnosed when she was 41 years old. But Boyer doesn't just pull the pink ribbon loose, unfastening its dainty loop. She feeds it through a shredder and lights it on fire." So yeah, I'm really interested for that one too. I feel like I've got some really solid picks here. Like this feels like a very comfortable list. Then I also have a couple from Dead Ink that I wanted to read and hadn't got to. So one is Exit Management by Naomi Booth. This has a woman in HR in it, I know that. It says that there's an individual who's quite poorly and asks the company to help them if it gets too much at the end, and they meet someone in HR who's happy to kind of get rid of him. I wanted this one, I don't know when this was published, but I feel like it's 2020, yeah, it's been in my head for a while. And I think it's going to be really enjoyable. Again, the cover's really striking. It's one that's like come in and come off of my to read list because I purge it every few months or so and I don't read it. So I'm glad to finally have it and see what I think. I don't know if everyone's loved this one, but I think I probably will. And then the last one I have is London Incognita by Gary Budden, and I love that cover. This is a modern ghost story sort of about London. So it says, a malicious presence from the 1970s resurfaces in the favoured alleyways of our city, an amnesiac goddess offers brittle comfort to the spirits of murdered shop girls, and an obscure and forgotten London writer holds the key to a thing known as the Emperor Worm. I think it's kind of weird, like horror, creepy shorts in an urban centre, which should be good. I was more interested in this one having read Writing the Uncanny, and I can't remember whether it was Gary Budden they mentioned or someone else, but there was someone in there who talked about horror in urban spaces, and when I read the blurb for this one I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Those are all the books I got for Christmas. I have one more book that I actually don't have up here, I'll show you, but I'll put the cover up, which is Salt Lick, which I bought at a local bookshop which is just open near to me. And that's my whole TBR, so it means I can dive straight into that pile. I'd be interested to know in the comments if there's any books that came out in 2021 that you feel I might have missed, or books that you really enjoyed and you want everybody to read and not forget about. That would be really cool because I have a little bit of Waterstones vouchers as well, so I might be able to add a few once that pile reduces, so I'd really appreciate that. Look after yourselves and I'll see you again soon in my next video. Bye!